Hello everyone. So today I'll be starting the session of mains answer writing GS-2. So I'll be covering the portion of polity and social affairs under GS-2 for 10 and 20 marks. So let's get the video started. So in GS-2 for 10 marks under polity, the question can be asked as question number 1. Do you think that the Constitution of India does not accept the principle of strict separation of powers rather than it is based on the principle of checks and balances? Explain. So, what is separation of power? Separation of power means the function of government is divided into legislative, executive, and judiciary. So, this is the separation of power that the legislature is headed by the ministers, by the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha members who makes laws. The executive are the ones who implements it. That is, they are the political executives. That is the ministers, and the permanent executive. That is the civil servants. And lastly, the judiciary, which is headed by the Supreme Court and other subordinate courts. So the question is asking that does the Constitution of India does not accept the principle of strict separation of powers? So the answer for 10 marks, you can write this as Indian Constitution is based on a delicate principle of limited separation of powers and checks and balances. That is, it follows both limited separation of powers and checks and balances. It means that there's separation of power, but not as much as strict as in the United States Constitution, but in a uh, middle ground. And also it also follows the principles of checks and balances. That is the judiciary will check upon the works of the executive and the legislature, because in India the separation of power is that the legislature and the executives are more or less the one. That is, from the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, ministers are selected and they run the executive, whereas the judiciary is a different case. So it follows somewhat of a mix between the separation of powers and the principle of checks and balances. So you can write this as the Constitution of India is based on the principle of limited separation of power and checks and balances. This means that each organ of the government has a clear area of functioning. Thus, the parliament is supreme in making laws and amending the constitution. The executive is supreme in implementing, and the judiciary is in settling the disputes. So, well, despite such clear division of power, as I've told you, there's not much uh, distribution of powers between the legislative, executive, and judiciary, and the judiciary has often been in conflict between the actions of the executive and the legislative. The current situation is the farm laws. That is, the legislature passed the law and the executives were trying to implement this. However, it came in conflict with the act with the judiciary, who at the end the Indian government has declared the farm laws to be invalid. So using this example, you can add to your answer writing for 10 marks. So in the next paragraph, you can write this as according to the constitution, there are three organs of the government. These are legislative, executive, and judiciary. The legislature elects our representatives, and the executives are appointed from the legislature. The judiciary is the system of courts. So the first portion explains the separation of power, and the second portion for 5 marks you will explain uh, the principle of checks and balances. That is, the actions of the legislative and the executive will be checked upon by the judiciary. So for this, you can write this for 10 marks. You can get the answer. Next, what are the methods used by the farm organization to influence the policymakers in India, and how effective are these methods? So citing the current affairs that of the farm laws 2020, in which the farmers organization were protesting against the implementation of the farm laws, by the Indian government. So you can write this with along with the current affairs that the farm organization play a huge role in influencing the politics of our nation because almost 50 more than 50% of the people are engaged in agriculture, and they are the one that runs the they also runs the economy of India. So farm organizations such as Kisan Morcha are seen as a useful organizational mechanism for mobilizing farmers' collective self-help action aimed at improving their own economic and social situation and that of their communities. For example, the Punjab. Many governmental and non-governmental organizations have been trying to organize farmers into groups and integrate them into the development process by actively involving them in transfer of technology, production, marketing, planning, implementing, and monitoring of different projects on rural development, agriculture, and allied sector development, natural resource management. So the farmers organization influenced the decision of the government in the agriculture field. So I've told you that the farm laws were started from 2020 and it continued till 2021 until the government rolled back the laws. So this has been influenced by the farmers organization who play a vital role in handling in organizing protest against the government. So in most circumstances, farmers organizations are beneficial to those involved, although choosing the most appropriate type of organization and its internal management needs careful thought in relation to achieving the objectives. Farmers organization is critical and central for sustainable agriculture. It works at every level from farmers experimenting them and together to locally improve techniques to jointly representing the interest at an international level. Given the difficulties faced by the farmers, every effort is needed to achieve the improvements needed in various sections, various circumstances. Farmers interest groups, networks, and federation can all make a huge contribution in raising awareness and campaigning for change. In majority of cases, strong local organization and will continue to be key in building sustainable development of agriculture. So, as I have mentioned, the farmers organization like the Kisan Morcha and all other are influence the politics at the local level, at the state level, and also at the national level. So with this, you can write this for 10 marks. Next, this is a question from Polity, which and sociology that is from the resolution of contentious issues relating regarding distribution of legislative powers by the courts. Principle of federal supremacy and harmonious constructions have emerged. So explain for 10 marks what is harmonious construction and principle of federal supremacy. The first and the foremost feature of the Indian polity is that the constitution is supreme law of the land and all state organs including the parliament, judiciary and states are bound by it. They must act within the limits laid down by the constitution. This is called the doctrine of constitutional supremacy. In the famous Keshavananda Bharati case, a bench of 13 judges, Supreme Court declared the supremacy of the Constitution as one of the cardinal feature or the basic structure of the Constitution. Um, Also, in the Minerva Mills, the it held that nobody is above the law, even the president, and every law by the Parliament is subject to interpretation by the Supreme Court in light of the ideals and objectives of the Constitution. And the next is the doctrine of harmonious construction. The doctrine of harmonious construction states that the provision of the statute should not be interpreted or construed in isolation but as a whole so as to remove inconsistency or repugnancy. For example, the current situation in Mon, where the death of many civilians through the ASPA Act. So, this ASPA Act was an act passed by the central government. So, the doctrine of harmonious reconstruction says that they that a portion of the ASPA cannot be taken should not be interpreted separately, but it should be interpreted as a whole. That is, ASPA gives special powers to the armies in regard to arrest or in worst cases imprisonment or killing of terrorists. However, this should not be interpreted as a separate as a, s- as a separate provision but as a whole. So this is the principle of harmonious construction. So you can cite this example in answer writing the the doctrine of harmonious construction. The doctrine of harmonious construction was a new technique of interpretation that was introduced in Hanif Qureshi Muhammad versus the state of Bihar, where a court invalidated a ban on the slaughter of all animals on the ground that it constituted an unreasonable restriction on the right to carry on a poacher's business as guaranteed under Article 19(1)(g), notwithstanding the directive under Article 41. However, it was stated that the Constitution has to be interpreted harmoniously and that the directive principles must be implemented, but in no such way that its law takes away and abridges the fundamental rights. So, this is a classic example that an article or a law cannot be interpreted separately. How it should be interpreted as a whole. If you don't understand this doctrine, you can cite the example of alpha and the uh, doctrine and the Minervals and Kesavananda Bharati case. So next, this question is related to science and technology. The implementation of information and communication technology based project programs usually suffer in terms of certain vital factors. Identify these factors and suggest measures for this effective implementation. So first of all, what is ICT? Information and communication technology. So information and communication technology usually refers to the use of technology like the internet, mobile banking, um, and various other electronic items for governance. And this has been this has been implemented by the government of India through the GEM, that is the Jandan Yojana, Aadhaar, and mobile. So the integration of this GEM have led to the implementation of information and communication technology. Technology has been vital in in governance by the use of various applications like Swayam and various other apps released by the government for improving the governance of a country. So the question is asking what are the difficulties in implementation these things. So ICT application can help the government to excel and render services to people consistent with the needs and demands. For example, now we need to connect our SBI with our other branches, so we can do this easily with the help of the mobile. And or you want to apply for a bank passbook without going to the bank, so you can do this with the use of science and technology, uh, information and communication technology. So this has um, helped in um, providing the needs of the citizens. But implementation of information communication technology has suffered much. Governments are using ICT in restructuring their traditional organization setup, re-engineering the work process, interacting with citizens and stakeholders, rendering services and information and efficient resource management. So, with the use of information and communication technology, various programs have been implemented. However, it has been the it there are some problems that are created, that is, there are lack of human resources. Organizational and technological infrastructure has posted hindrances to the effective implementation of ICT in governance. For example, Dimapur and Koyama are well known because they have good mobile communication in most of the places. However, if you go to some remote places like Mon, Gifuri, Tuinsang, etc., the mobile communication uh, is worse as compared to other states. So, implementing information and communication technology is very hard in those areas. So these are the hindrances in implementation of this organization in information and communication technology, and it has led to its minimal use. Most of the ICT-based projects have thus resulted in wasteful expenditure and ineffective service of delivery. The challenge is to overcome these hindrances and provide for an optimal exploitation of ICT in governance. And how this can be this can be implemented. So the ICT, the information communication technology, can be implemented through proper planning. That is, um, creating a draft plan in which all the sectors will be involved in developing this ICT in remote places. Well planned visions and priorities. Having a proper vision, we can also apply. We can develop this ICT and information and communication technology infrastructure and architecture, and use of manpower, uh, and commitment of leadership of ministers, acceptance by officials, that is at the executive level by the ministers, transparency and accountability. Every work that is done by the government in implementing ICT should be transparent and free of corruption. Citizen centeredness, that is, it should be citizen friendly. Ethical finances, more uh, money should be supplied for this development and public-private partnership. Only the government is not will not be able to implement these schemes, but in in cooperation with private sectors, we can apply this. And legal recognition, that is, it should be free form. It should be it should have legal backing and well laid out information policy. These factors laid down, some of the fact this the given following factors can be implemented for proper implementation of ICT. So this question is related to the information and technology, which may come for Denmark. Next, the reservation of seats of women in institutions of local self-government has had limited impact on the patriarchal character of the Indian political process. Comment. So, as regard to Nagaland, you know the ULB elections incidents where the there was much setback for implementation of women reservation in urban local bodies. So this question is asking that even though there is reservation and it has limited impact on the patriarchal character of the Indian political process, to explain. So we noted under Article 243 D, it provides for reservation for 1 by third to women, and are also under Article 243 D in municipalities. And in with regards to Nagaland, only in VDB there's reservation for women. Otherwise, there's not much reservation for women even in Nagaland rural sector, rural and urban sector. So one third of all the seats in institution of local governance in rural areas and municipalities and corporations are reserved for women, as well as the position of chairperson at every level. Women who enter representative bodies, including panchayat, generally belong to influential families, including politicians, and may be surrogates for the men who cannot contest due to the reservation. So the women, those who involve in politics, are usually have linkages with politicians, or they are the wives of those persons who cannot contest election because of the reservation process. Family and political connections are believed to help women at every step from the decision to contest to getting successfully voted. On the other hand, underprivileged women often face threats of violence when they have dared to express their intention to contest elections. Violence against women representatives is general worse when they also have when they also happen to belong to a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe. Representatives faced many social confronts, including restrictions of going out of house, lack of literacy and education, the household chores of fetching water and fodder, cooking and raising children that affect the performance. It is true that many women are nominated by the husbands, fathers, and father-in-law to take advantage of the quota, which made it difficult for the men to contest. In some cases, election materials, banners, posters, and etc. are made in the name of the man rather than a woman who is the official candidate, and that the man tends to assume the role of a pradhan or a sarpanch, attending and even chairing the meetings in place of the elected woman representatives. So this has been detrimental um, in ending the patriarchal nature of the Indian political system. So with this, the video on mains answer writing question has come to an end. I hope you all uh, understood something, and I'll be putting up more videos in the future. So thank you all and have a great time.